We have been trained to love shit. Want shit and shit. It used to be the brands were formed from people's desires. Now it's the people that are being formed according to the desires of the brands.
Let's just pause for a second here before it gets any more crazy and try and explain how Misha, played fantastically by Ed Stoddard, has come to these conclusions. Branded is a 2012 Russian-American film co-produced and directed by Jamie Bradshaw and Alexander Dularein. A young Misha awakes unfazed by his fever dream of the star cow and is somehow numerically branded, but is also equally unfazed by this. He's then smited, for no real reason at all I guess, but he lives, and flash forwards to him now working as a marketing consultant. Like all convenient stories, there is a hitch, and he had to become a spy for the US under his boss and now handler Bob, played by Jeffrey Tambor. However, soured by his lack of promotion, he becomes enamored by his boss's niece, Abby, played by Lily Sobieski, and helps create a new reality show with her where an overweight girl is transformed into ideal standards of beauty. The show is successful, but the girl is left in a coma after the surgery, causing massive public backlash and Misha's arrest. Behind the scenes, a true marketing guru played by Max von Sydow has been pulling the strings and orchestrated the event as part of a master plan to make fat fabulous.
Together we will make fat beautiful again.
But Misha thinks it's his boss's fault, Bob. Misha then goes to confront Bob for orchestrating the event to separate Misha from his niece, but right on cue the narrative development of Misha being a spy is paid off, as this is when Misha reveals he's been lying to Bob in his spy reports to win their pissing contest, which causes Bob to have a heart attack and pass away. After this, Misha leaves to the countryside to become a shepherd, refusing to participate in society at all. 6 years later, Abby returns to reconnect with Misha, only to find him a recluse.
I don't have anybody.
Which, by the way, may have been a good time to tell him he had a son before, well, this.
Hi, baby. This is your son.
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
You are the father.
Bye. Before he leaves with Abby to Moscow, we jump into a dreamlike red heifer ritual murder of a cow, bathed in its blood and bones type sequence. But at least it shows him the plan now, which almost seems like the plan was to scare and torment Misha, as upon returning to the obesified and fat as fabulous Russia, we see creatures on people that feed off and encourage their desires. Misha tries to convince Abby of his visions, and she tries to convince him to see a doctor. After several failed attempts by Misha to reveal the master plan to Abby and maniacally protect his son, Abby ends up leaving with their son on a holiday and kicks Misha out of the house. Misha, now on a vengeance against the influence of marketing the branding creatures, joins a vegetarian Chinese restaurant chain called Dim Sum, and uses fear-based marketing tactics to make consumers fight against other brands in a body warfare. It ends in more public backlash and the ultimate banning of advertisements and marketing throughout all of Russia, which was Misha's main goal and thwarts the marketing guru's plan. After all the public backlash, Misha is seen waking in his hospital, as is also the coma patient at the beginning of the film from the surgery, and she is seen walking around Moscow free of advertisements. At its surface, branded as a commentary on fast food consumer culture and the lack of true free will we have as consumers being controlled by marketing. Letting one of the directors, Jamie Bradshaw, speak.
The way that we live today is defined fundamentally by marketing and the hidden forces that control us.
This as a concept and idea is a very valid and true concern. However, in its execution, Branded doesn't really truly hit this mark, and frequently naively undermines and misunderstands its own points, and the reviews from critics and audience reflect this. Free will is most commonly debated from two perspectives. Firstly is genuine liberal free will, and then secondly is hard determinism. These are being the idea you have genuine free will, and then the idea that events occur because of other past events, and that only whatever happens now will only ever be a product of them. Now, not to discredit the latter, but determinism completely negates all arguments made about identity and free will. Determinism only leads to us to view ourselves as machines that act in a manner completely controlled by the physical laws. Instead of the marketing strategies being the manipulator and us having a choice, it suggests that nothing we ever do would subsequently be organic and removes the life from life, undermining every action as premeditated. Critiquing determinism, Watson, in 2003, when speaking on the influence of events as somehow on the power of another, writes that the truth is merely that they are factually correlated. Recent positions on free will see it as a conceptualized generator of random behavior and the ability of an agent to select an option from these set of alternatives. But what happens when those set of alternatives are out of our control? From the very start, we're shown an omnipresent spirit cow god that controls and manipulates Misha, the marketing guru, and at least 157 other entities. Misha begins his life in someone else's control. He is quite literally branded and forced to live his life out according to the cow gods. And don't forget, the star cow giveth and the star cow taketh away. But whilst we're on cows, at Misha's climax, here's the most textbook definition of Freud's belief of dreams being a route to the unconscious, having a dream where he's forced to listen to someone tell him exactly what to do, but this allows Misha to radically change the way he sees the world. Forgetting he's no longer in a dream, Misha then uses the cow to perform the red heifer ritual described in Numbers 19, which purifies the unclean and defiles the pure, using the ashes of death to bring about separation from the impurity of death and restoration. To me, this moment is signifying Misha's rebirth in character, washing himself of the past marketing sins and the death of his boss, Bob, carrying out his new anti-marketing crusade. But it still sees his decision being made on the whims of a dream, and still entirely coordinated to a plan he literally had no say in and blindly, obediently follows. The main controlling power inhibiting free will comes directly in the form of marketing companies. In the film, it is the marketing guru pulling the strings and manipulating the world based on his clients, the fast food global elite's desires. In our reality, the global elites would be Amazon, Google, and Alibaba. In our consumer culture, where is the free will? In a hypothetical of clothes shopping, when you're presented with the alternative brand options of A, B, or C, we will forever only be able to choose a product of A, B, or C which has been conveniently sold to us. Yet we will still boldly stake to claim to have our own unique identity. This forced, twisted consumer relationship sees us actively reject our own free will, with the only unattainable escape to either produce goods for ourselves or to pay someone to produce it for us. It is not a new idea or discussion point that humans have throughout history tried to blindly manipulate the population. We've literally seen insurrectionist riots spawn as a direct result of the blind consumption of narratives, but is this fear that nonetheless spawned branded? The idea that we now blindly promote ourselves as brands on Instagram or Facebook and sell facades of our lives. The literal brand warfare seen in fashion. We are not in control of the narratives, but we consume them without regard every single time. Through every major event, you can instantly check Twitter to see either the social activism or the internet memes and trolling about the issue.
Hey, you can't park there! You can't park there!
We live in an age where we can evolve ourselves globally and engage with discourses and ideas and dreams we've never seen or shared before. And we buy it. We buy it all, and branded dares to make us think on this, but ultimately fails and becomes the very thing it's against. The initial argument that consumers' free will is something heavily impacted by marketing and we are always complicit will always hold truth. It's called propaganda and we consume it on the daily. Any message we receive will be some form of handmade propaganda. The only way to combat this is the fact that consumers can navigate marketing and make decisions for themselves in the form of our free will. Critiquing fast food culture, a la branded, is not an apt talking point for free will decisions in our consumer society. The reality is, fast food is cheap. Fast as the name would suggest, and it's easy to engage with. Organic and healthy food is framed as expensive and time-consuming. All this narrative achieves is just more pro-capitalist propaganda shifting the blame from one boogeyman to another without actually addressing the issue or offering reforms to the consumer. Instead, it informs us to be paranoid and then tries to convince us that it's right. Misha fights capitalist marketing with more capitalist marketing. Even with his end triumph to solve the marketing issue he had, he achieved this by fighting fire with fire. Our only takeaway as the audience is that there is nothing we can do to help ourselves against the global elite except run away and hide from all the messaging, or burn it down. It is the same as the determinist argument resulting in the suggestions that humans are nothing more than dumb cows waiting to be farmed and processed and that we have no capability in genuine decision making. Branded is making the same argument that it is seeking to challenge. The marketing itself for Branded saw the trailer to be presented as a faster-paced, action-oriented thriller like The Matrix. Now, let's compare scenes from the trailer and how they were used in the final end product of the film.
Pure all beef. Try the burger. You'll fall in love.
Now, without going full conspiracy, Branded begins to just come off as marketing made by the global elite to soothe our concerns. Its message becomes disingenuous as it engages in the very practices it projects as evil. This isn't a low-budget, self-funded indie film. Decisions aren't forced here. It was a product of the most possible amounts of free will, and yet it still chose to define itself and stay bound within the realms of nothing more than marketing spin. The sad reality of all this is that it just adds to the main central argument. We are all complicit. As individuals, it is our job and duty to monitor the information we receive. We should never blindly consume nor produce goods, yet time and time again that is all we do, and all we do is see the same patterns of mistakes, the same blind consumerism, and the same narrative spin trying to keep us all under control.